at the end of the day, Steve, is it's rock music. And if it's rock music, you got to be able to like kind of move, you know?
Yes.
And that is without a doubt the most important thing, especially for me as a drummer. The reason I love drums is because when I hear them and I hear a rhythm, it does something to you. And with, one of the goals I've always had with Vai is how can I, if I have to play something that's in 13, how can I still make it sound like AC/DC?
Welcome to another episode of Drum for the Song podcast. I am your host, Dane Campbell, and today's special guest is Jeremy Colson, who's been playing drums for rock guitar god Steve Vai for over 20 years and has also recently taken on the role behind the kit for ex-Skid Row vocalist Sebastian Bach. Jeremy has some fascinating insights on being a session musician and how playing for the song in an instrumental band is different to a much more common rock band situation containing vocals. He also talks about some of the techniques he's implied over the years, which include using a double butt-ended stick for his snare hand to achieve a fatter, more consistent rim shot. And despite playing in some irregular time signatures with Steve Vai, he always tries to make it sound as straight as possible. I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever you're listening to this, and please leave a 5-star review if you can. It really helps new listeners discover the show. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Welcome everybody, and welcome Jeremy Colson for being my guest today. How are you doing today in sunny California?
I'm doing good in sunny California. It's cold California, but it's sunny.
Well, how cold is it for you in relation? Because it's about -1 Celsius where I am.
Okay, you're doing the Celsius thing.
Sorry, yeah.
I always get confused on that. I don't know, but it's cold, but I'm sure if anybody that's not from California would be out here and be like, this isn't that cold. You're complaining just because we're spoiled with the best weather year round. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I was, I think it was around this time last year, I was in California with my wife on vacation, and for us, it was pretty warm. Yeah. So it was great. But
it's a beautiful place. It's I don't know. California's changed a lot in the last 10 years, but it's again the climate and the water and the mountains and everything. It's a great place to. I'm grateful that I grew up in California and I'm from here.
Yeah. So, which part are you from, out of interest?
So. I was born in Northern California, the Bay Area. So where, all the thrash bands originated from. So I grew up in a town called Belvedere, in the place Marin County. So right when you go over the Golden Gate Bridge, that's Marin County. And I grew up there. That's where I learned how to play and did everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So I imagine then that musical community must have had an influence on you as a young musician.
Sure. Well, I think I was very lucky to grow up, particularly pre-internet times, like before growing up in a place like California, because even in Northern California, there's this the arts is looked at a particular way. And there's a lot more opportunities, especially back in the day when there were more when there were labels and it was a different kind of scene. But there was more opportunity. That's why everybody would either move to L.A., Nashville, or New York, depending on what their thing was. So I'm really grateful. And when I growing up in Northern California, I lived near a guy who owned a record label. Called Shrapnel Records, a guy named Mike Barney. And, by meeting him, that's how I started working with Michael Schenker and Marty Friedman and all that stuff. It's, you meet the right people.
Yeah.
Because there was no YouTube then, so I couldn't make a YouTube video.
Yeah, you just got to meet people and I guess learn about auditions and show up and hope for the best?
And I was, I was playing in high school. I was playing in clubs, with older musicians, and uh, I was dragging my drums everywhere. And I played in the school jazz band and in the symphonic band. I mean, I was, everything like that was because that's when I read about my heroes. That's what they did, lugging their drums around, doing all those things. And I always liked the idea of being a working drummer. Uh, I just really respected that. So yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome, man. So what kind of age were you when you started playing? When did you get your first kit?
I was about, I was in fifth grade, and my brother and I both were going to start instruments, and I got a snare drum because I was just going to, for the school band thing, like this marching snare drum. The minute I got the snare drum, I took it home, and I remember playing, seriously, like just not even ever played a drum at all. Just I started playing a song on the snare drum, some heavy metal song because, Ozzy Osbourne was my childhood hero at the time. So like, I was immersed in heavy metal. So drums were great. And another thing, like it was real natural. I got it. And then within a month I had a drum kit, and it just became easy. So but it wasn't until, and I always tell this, when I talk about how I got into drums, is then I was 15, and then I really got into Rush, and then it was like, okay, big drums, all this stuff, and and then at 15, at that time, Rush is kind of looked at now as they're respected a lot more now. But back in the day, it was like, oh, that's progressive, like that's kind of dorky music, that's not cool or whatever. But I liked it because it was challenging, and it made me like I had to think about the parts, and I had to learn how to execute them, and there was something about that intrigued me.
And I imagine that really prepared you for the current role that you do in the Steve Vai band, because that's very, I guess, intricate parts, different time signatures. Obviously, just mainly instrumental music. I know there are some songs with vocals and stuff. So yeah, I imagine that would have put you in good stead for that. And I like, from what I've read and seen, you're also into some of like the punk rock vibe.
Yeah, man. And I think that's kind of the other thing is I always try to explain. For me, the drummers that I really like are not necessarily the drummers that are technically the most proficient or the best, but it's the ones that play from here. And like when I saw you play like that, and punk rock has that punk rock has that aesthetic where there's this emotional, rebellious aspect to it, and it's less about were the parts perfect or was the message or the attitude put out. And so the irony of when I joined Steve Vai's band, I was 25 and I was really into punk at the time, and that's all I was doing. I was playing. I loved all the real fast, like throughout the whole thing. And I didn't, and then Steve called me. I didn't even want to do the audition. I didn't think I would get it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So then when I got the gig, my attitude was like, I want to be like a punk drummer playing like progressive music because that's unique. I'm not going to, I can't compete with Mike Mangini. I can't compete with Virgil Donati. Like those dudes do stuff. Like, I'm not going to try to compete with that. I'm going to, what's me? Me is like hitting hard, being kind of like just crazy and having like this kind of punk rock attitude towards a genre of music that wouldn't normally kind of hear that.
Yeah, I
thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's normally people who are into that kind of music are generally not into punk rock as well. It's normally you're either one side of the kind of rock spectrum or the other. But yeah, there are people that appreciate all of it. Like I would say, I'm definitely one of those people. Like my dad brought us up listening to Steve Vai and Satriani and stuff. Yeah. Like I was in school, all my friends were listening to the Spice Girls. and I was listening to instrumental guitar music and obviously Motorhead and stuff like that. And but like I really loved it. And yes, it's show off music to some degree, because it's the main guy demonstrating his songwriting and technical abilities, but you can really feel the emotion in a lot of it, and I think a lot of that gets missed. And there's a reason why he's playing those notes and why that chord's there, and it means a lot. And I really, really like that. And sometimes I just don't like singers.
I tell you, Dan, it's crazy, man, because I think about it, man. I've spent more of my life playing music with no singing than I have with singers. I mean, I played with, I played with Billy Idol for 2 years. I play with Sebastian Bach when I don't do this. He tours, and the mindset of being a drummer playing when you play instrumental music and then when you play with a vocalist are very different. And I really noticed that, especially particularly last year when I was on the road with Sebastian Bach. We were on the road for 3 months. We were one of the first bands to really come back after COVID and all that stuff. Yeah. And we did the Slave to the Grind anniversary tour, and it was hard, man. It was like, people still weren't coming out. A lot of people were still wearing masks, and it was weird and everything like that. But as far as drumming goes, when you're playing with a singer, when I'm playing, I'll hear things differently. A lot of times, if Steve's playing a particular melody, he's going to rhythmically play that the same way because he wrote it that melody. Singers, as you know, can kind of, do the Vince Neil thing, or they rush, or they're just kind of like, you have to understand how to hold the band into place and also keep the singer in there, but not hold the band into place like you're playing with a click track and it just sounds like it's, like it's not moving with the singer. That's the part of the musicality that you can only get by playing with other musicians. You can't get this by going in your room and making YouTube videos. You have to, like, that's the thing that I always try to express to the younger generation is you got to get out and play with other people. And maybe they don't want to. Maybe they're fine making YouTube videos, but when you get on stage with other musicians and you perform, it's not about your performance anymore. It's about cohesive, how you interact as a team. And I think nowadays it's easy to kind of get into like, look what I can do, as opposed to how does the whole band as a unit sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm totally for that. This podcast is called Drum for the Song. So it's basically, it's interacting with the other musicians you're playing with, whether that's on record or whether you're in a room with them.
Whatever.
It's not all about the drums. No matter what band you're in, I guess. Even when you do get, obviously the some of the drumming in some of the Steve Vai stuff that you've played on and play live, it can get busy, but there's lots of tracks where you're just rocking out. And like there's a song that I was watching a live video this afternoon, and it was like an intro to a gig, and it's just you hitting hell out of a crash cymbal, simple beat on a kick and snare, and I was like, that sounds so amazing. While Steve does his thing.
Well, thank you. Well, again, here's the other thing that I think that was a helpful thing. One of the reasons why I got the gig with Vai 20 years ago now, is that, again, we talk about instrumental music and we talk about solo music, and a musician is kind of showcasing their talent or whatever. That doesn't mean that everybody in the band should be showcasing their talent at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, because then it just starts to sound almost fusiony, and it starts to get real kind of like abstract, like where's the one, and some people like that. But at the end of the day, Steve is it's rock music. And if it's rock music, you got to be able to like kind of move,
Yes.
And that is without a doubt the most important thing, especially for me as a drummer. The reason I love drums is because when I hear them and I hear a rhythm, it does something to you. And with, one of the goals I've always had with Bias is how can if I have to play something that's in 13, how can I still make it sound like AC/DC? That's my goal. Because, it's very easy to hear people play odd meter for the sake of it being odd meter. Hey, dude, this is an 11. Check it out. Check how crazy this is. You can't do this, but watch me do it. But when you can do something like when you listen to a band like Soundgarden, you see them, using 5s and 7s and stuff like that, but you're not thinking about that. You're just, no, that's an odd meter. I didn't even think about that because it just, or take a band. One of my favorite metal bands is Meshuggah. I love them. And a lot of times the guitar player is playing, rhythms that might not be in 4, but a lot of the times Thomas is playing in 4 to at least with the snare drums on 2 and 4, where you can go like this. And that is one of the reasons why they're successful. Yes, it's not absolutely. Like you don't turn it on and go like, I don't even know where to begin. Where's the 1? You can go, wait a minute. And that's a rhythm. And I love it. Yeah. You get enthusiastic about it.
You've got to give it a pulse. So people who are not musicians, for example, when you played Hellfest, we both played Hellfest, and I watched you. I'm sure lots of those guys in the audience and girls play instruments, but a lot of them don't. So you need to give them something to follow and to rock out with. And like the fact that like Vai was playing that lineup was incredible to me, but it was perfect and it was great. It went down amazing. And I had to witness it. And it just reminds me of a funny story. I was watching you guys side stage with Mickey D standing next to me. Yeah. And we were probably like 3/4 of the way into your set. I was really digging it. I took some photos and stuff. And then I can't remember which song, but it was before, I think it was before you played like Tender Surrender and some of the ones I remember from my childhood.
Sure.
And he was like, and Mickey was like, do you want to come and look at my kit? And I was like, I really didn't want to say yes, but I was like, I have to say yes because
it's Mickey D.
Yeah, because it's Mickey D and he's offering to show me his drum kit now. Yeah. I'm not going to have this chance again. So I was like, I kind of missed the end of the set and I was devastated because I was like, it was one of the only bands, it was one of the only bands that afternoon that like, I was like, right, definitely going to go watch Vai. But what I did see was amazing, and it was cool that we got to kind of briefly chat before and after. But
man, I saw you because I was watching. Because when we got there, we went up. I remember going up to where the catering thing was and seeing you guys play, and I was just loved watching your kit. Sounded great. Your groove was awesome, and you just played the right thing. It's just it's that play on a 4 or 5 piece kit. The basics. I love that. I miss doing. There's times where I really long to do that. I enjoy the Vai stuff too, where I can kind of have different types of drums and intricate things. But there's nothing quite like the that kind of punk rock kind of thing of like there's the kit. No backing track, nothing. You just go up and it's like a rock band. You don't see that as much anymore. You see it. There's that organic feeling about that. Is just I love that. That's what I loved about the way you played and with you guys. It was awesome.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And it was a pretty scary gig, but we loved every moment of it, and that's a pretty big show for us, So but I guess we're one of the few. Rock and roll bands out there that like we don't have a click or anything live.
Yeah.
I'm like that's the way we like it. That's the way my dad likes it. Sometimes I feel we'd be more consistent with a click, but I don't know if it'd be the same vibe.
Yeah, but it's really weird, man, because it's kind of across the board now with the way drummers use that. Because I use a lot of times the reason I use a click live is because we have. Sometimes we have a screen in the background and we have samples that have to follow the screen.
Yeah.
And also like, because of, Steve Vai, he has very intricate guitar parts, very crazy guitar parts. if they're 2 BPMs faster, it's going to be like, wait a minute, I don't physically know. Like he makes, his stuff is very challenging. So it's the style of music that that flows with a click track or with backing tracks. It kind of can suit that. But there's other styles of music. I don't know. Like with Sebastian Bach, I try to use it as little as I can because I like to push and pull, and I like bands that push and pull. You know, I really like that. If it's always just, you can tell it's on a click, then I don't know. Just depends, I guess. Sometimes stylistically what the music is too.
Yeah, I think there definitely is a place for both methods. There's no right or wrong in drumming and in music. So it's whatever you vibe with and whatever the listeners like, and hopefully you find something that works for the majority. You can't please everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But it's interesting to know. I was going to ask you, this is a bit of a controversial question.
Okay.
Because you've mainly played instrumental music. If you could, like, say if you had to make a deal with the devil that you could only play instrumental music for the rest of your life or only play vocal music for the rest of your life, which one would you pick?
Man. That's a tough question.
Like if money wasn't a thing, obviously certain gigs might pay more than others, I don't know. But if money wasn't a thing and just for your own brain.
maybe instrumental music. If money wasn't a thing, it was my own brain. I mean, I'm sure, there's so many limits with what instrumental music can be.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'd probably go with that at this point in my life.
Cool. You're very good at it, so I think that's a good choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to ask with regards to the songwriting with Vai. Obviously, you've played on lots of albums by this point. With regards to the writing and with regards to the drum parts, how much influence does he have on what you end up playing on the final recordings?
Well, a lot of times it can vary. Like some of the stuff he would send me and he would program it on a drum machine.
Right.
And he would have particular parts that he wanted played like they were on the drum machine. And then other parts that, if something doesn't feel natural, it feels like a drum machine, like a kind of, how people that aren't drummers can write parts. And it's like, well, I see what you're doing, but it's not going to sound natural for a drummer to do. He's going to be the first one that goes, okay, make it feel natural.
Cool.
But there's some stuff will be like, nope, you got to play it like that. Figure it out. Like I got time, and you're in the studio, and you're like for instance, the last album, the newest record, we finally recorded the drums somewhere else besides Steve's studio. We went to Dave Grohl's place at 606.
I've been there. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
I've not recorded there, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, place. So we had recorded there, and I remember we went in and we were tracking. There's a song called "Deuce and Chains," and there's this crazy drum fill part that I was trying to figure out. And we're in there, and Steve's, came out of the control room, and he's in the board. No, right here. No. One he had it. He's trying to explain this mathematically, all this stuff. And all of a sudden, Dave Grohl just walks in, smoking a cigarette. Hey man, what's going on? I'm just sitting here Steve and Dave. Hey, what's going on, Dave? And I'm sitting here going, I can't figure out this freaking part. See the little upper's like, oh hey Dave, and then Dave, hey, nice to meet you. Okay, see you later. Okay, figure out this part. And back to so you have to. That's the other thing. When other musicians or who you're working with tells you that they want a part a particular way, it's how you respond to being able to, make them happy with figuring that part out. And also just being calm under pressure, because that's what being a hired musician is all about. You have people hire you because they need, you're not a band member. You're a hired gun, meaning that you have the tools to come in to when someone needs a drummer and take care of whatever they need to get taken care of. I mean, that's at the end of the day, even though I've been in Steve's band for 20 years and he's one of my best friends and I love him and everything like that. At the end of the day, it's Steve Vai and I'm a hired gun, just like I was with Sebastian, with Billy Idol, with Marty Friedman, with Michael Schenker. And I've never minded that, you know? I mean, I admire guys that are in bands and I like that idea of, you know, people getting into bands and being like, yeah, we're going to make it. But I'm always kind of been a loner anyways. So I like the fact that I don't have to like be in a band. I can do different things because I get bored kind of easily. I like to push myself in different styles and in different ways of playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess, do you ever feel a negative side of that from a scheduling point of view? Like how much in advance do you get like Steve Vai's tour dates and stuff? Do you have to turn down other things and stuff?
Dane, as you know as well as I do, the music business is not exactly a reliable business.
No.
And so scheduling is, it sucks sometimes because tours get planned, then they get canceled, then they get postponed. Things happen. And, you know, I always think it's like until I'm on the bus, you know, or have my plane ticket in the plane, it's like I never want to get my hopes up because I've, you know, this last Steve Vai tour. I mean, it was postponed. You know, it was supposed to happen at one point, and then COVID happened, and I think that as far as scheduling goes, that changed the game for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a big way, and I've definitely been in situations where I've had to schedule things, and then you know sometimes everybody's copacetic and they understand. But then again, sometimes, you know, you can't please everybody and you take one thing and you don't do this thing. And I don't know it's not always black and white.
Yeah. And there's always the danger then, I guess, if you have to turn down something that is perhaps one of your more regular gigs, someone else goes in and they like that guy or maybe he's available.
See, then you can go in your head and then you can say exactly. You can envision your entire career before it even happens in your head by saying, well, if I don't do this guy's going to get the gig and they'll like him more and then he'll take it and I won't have the gig and I won't have any. And like, I know that's frustrating too. And that's why I'm saying there's no clear cut way of how you do it. I guess it's some people will take a gig because it pays better, another gig. Other people take a gig because they like dealing with the people. You know, for me, from what I know about being on the road for the years that I've been doing it, is that the people that you tour with, getting along is, as you know, super important. You know, because, you know, we go on stage, an hour and 45 minutes, but then all the rest of the day we're around each other, you know, and you know, no matter how much money I think somebody gets paid, I think it's, you have to be able to get along with people. And, you know, the Vai crew is like a family, and all the bands that I toured with, the Sebastian Bach crew, we're all friends, you know, we're all cool. And the less drama, the better.
Yeah, I would agree with that in any touring situation. You don't want drama. You know, it happens sometimes, you know, the lack of sleep and things like that can escalate things a little bit. And
dude, all of that, you know, all of that. It's just like when the tour we did, when you and I met, when we were in Europe, that tour. And what's funny, Dan, is that like, I always tell people, like some people say like, that sounds like it was the worst tour ever because we went through about 4 buses that were breaking down. We lost our air conditioning. All of this stuff happened, but I had so much fun
Didn't you get a
because
train or something? Didn't you jump on a
yeah,
train to get a
yeah,
gig or
we had
something like that?
one gig we had when we did the Boss Pop Festival. The night before we played, and the bus just broke, and we had to go to Boss Pop Festival. That was the festival that Sting played. Yeah, we were playing. Yeah,
Wow.
and we didn't even find out about this until after the show. It's like, okay, so no hotel, no bus tonight. We're gonna get in the train and get there in the morning, go straight to the gig, and then play. And Dan, you know how this that's how it is. And
Yeah.
at the time, it's frustrating because you want to be able to know that when you play that you're well rested and that you can give everything you have, but it doesn't always go like that. And sometimes I've found myself surprised at how uh, well I can do with whatever conditions are thrown at me. And I think that's good for people to have that, to have all the elements thrown at you, to see how you can still go and you still go on stage every night and you perform the same way, or you give, what's needed of you.
Yeah. The adrenaline will eventually kick in, no matter how
Yeah.
tired you're feeling that afternoon or that morning or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it does make you kind of worry about your performance sometimes, and especially in the high energy gigs that I guess you especially have. Like mine is fairly high energy, I'd like to say.
Yeah,
And sometimes
dude.
when we got it, sometimes we've done some of these festival runs in Europe, and we might have to take 3 flights before getting to a festival and then playing that evening. And like,
Yeah.
you just see all these obstacles in front of you,
Yeah.
and you think, how am I going to have the energy to play? But you do it, and it works out
But
okay.
you do it. It's like, it's like being on tour when you get the flu and you're sick and you're just everything you have to play. And somehow you get it. And I think that's what's, because the adrenaline, too, I think
Yeah.
kicks in. And it's also, uh, this is performing musicians is what we get to do is we're very lucky, because anybody that gets an opportunity to play in front of lots of people like we have, and have people respond to that, and to feel like all that work that we've done is being looked at and applauded for. When you do enough of that, it's hard to do anything else. So you will do whatever you have to do to continue to be able to perform and to be able to do those things because you love it.
That's mainly it, really.
I mean, we could be working at Target, or it's like this is the thing, and it's really tough. It's a hard business. It's a hard way to make a living. There's a lot of obstacles, and there's a lot of negative things, but there's also a lot of positive things, and there's a lot of great things. And I think that particularly, I really think that after this post-pandemic thing, I think there's a lot of musicians that are a lot more grateful now than they used to be.
I think so as well.
I think before the pandemic, demands on touring by bands would be a lot different than they are now. Because I can tell you right now, trying to tour Europe right now with band, like touring anywhere, just because you can play now, those years of nobody driving buses, nobody making cymbals, all these things. Now they're trying to catch up. Yeah. And it's not, it's taking time. Remember when we were at Hellfest, remember how many bands were touring Europe?
It was
at
insane.
That time?
Yeah.
It was like everybody was like, okay, it's open up, let them all go. So everybody was out.
And because it was like 3 years worth of tours put together at the same time.
I know, that's why festivals are going to be for a while now. I think festivals are that's kind of one of the new things, man, because there's so many bands and there's not enough for those bands to go by themselves.
Yeah. I think definitely from a personal perspective, when we've been playing our headline club tours, definitely ticket sales are still kind of on the downer since pre-COVID levels. And, maybe next year, maybe this year might get a little bit better, but then there's the cost of living, which in the UK at the moment is insane. Like I say, it's winter. It's the cost of energy and gas to heat your home up is insane. It's like for example, it's just me and my wife live in this house, and on average we're spending like £15, so that's maybe $25 maybe a day, just for like hot water and heating. Wow. And I'm not even turning it up much. I'm not turning it up high. I'm just kind of making it bearable. It's crazy, and everyone's going through this right now. Everyone's bills going up, and you know, the first thing that people are going to sacrifice is concerts and luxuries and things like that. I know. Unfortunately, so I hope they do something about it to improve the situation.
Dane, I know what you're saying, because we're going back to Europe in 2 months.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to plug that for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, but it's hard. It's touring post again. It's kind of like almost look at it the way 9/11 was. 9/11 was before 9/11. Traveling was a certain way.
Yeah.
Before COVID, touring was a certain way, and I don't think it's ever going to go. Flying is never going to be like it was before 9/11. I don't think touring is ever going to quite go. I just think that it's going to take some time before it's easy for bands to get. I mean, like not like it ever was that easy for any band to just get out and play, but it's hard. That's definitely one of the things. And when COVID hit, the thing that got hit the worst, the profession that got hit the worst, was being a performing musician.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the worst thing.
Yeah. What did you get up to during those years briefly then?
Man, I was immersed in teaching. Because I tell you, what happened to me was about a year before that, I had started to teach because for a while I was playing a lot, and I got burnt out on drums for a while and music, and I dedicated my time to mountain biking and doing yoga, and I'm very into exercising and all that stuff. But at one point I said I want to start teaching. I want to teach. I like working with kids. It's something that I'm always been good with, and so I started doing that, and I just became immersed in working with teaching drums. Like younger kids that are just kind of getting into it. I work with a couple of different music schools out here, and then when the pandemic happened, I was in my home doing Zoom lessons.
Right, yeah,
the whole time, and it's challenging doing the Zoom thing. Very challenging. But you know what? I loved it because it was like those years of the lockdown. I lived next to my drums, and I taught, and I was able to, because when you teach, you learn things yourself. Because if somebody wants to know how you do something, you can't, as you know, when you explain something, you have to know how to explain it. Instead of, you just hold it like this. See how I'm doing it? Just do that. So I had to learn how to articulate and explain to my students, especially, the younger kids. And I work with kids that are autistic and on the spectrum and stuff. So everybody's got a different way of learning. But I love, working with this because I was very much similar to that growing up. I had a lot of energy and I didn't know how to focus. And, sometimes you just need to find somebody that can help you focus on something. And for some people, something like drumming is this repetitive thing, and it's very helpful.
Absolutely.
But teaching made me reanalyze how I was holding the sticks, and it made me completely redo my technique.
Amazing.
Like in many ways. And now I don't know if I have drumsticks on me. I'm walking around, dude, like constantly with drumsticks.
That's so cool.
Because I was, with so many years of playing, especially like with Vai, the amount of years we toured. And when we tour, we'll do 6-7 shows in a row, hour and a half sound check, 2.5 hour set.
Wow. Yeah,
that's how he does it. So you're constantly on your instrument constantly. Oh, and rehearsals, forget it, man. Rehearsals, there was a tour we did, and the DVD that came out called Where the Wild Things Are. And it's when we had the 2 violin players and we had this, we did this big tour and everything. That was a month of touring, 6 days a week, 13-hour days.
Wow.
To prepare for that, Wow. And that's how he works, because the guy played with Frank Zappa,
Yeah, he's a perfectionist.
Yeah, so I've been blessed, and I feel so grateful that I've spent, since I was 25, I've got to be working with somebody that is so musically inclined and gifted, not just on the guitar, but just composing and melody and dynamics, and having someone like that is not just as your band leader, but like as your teacher, and because of that, I've learned so much about, dynamics and all of that stuff. So I'm at this point now where within the last few years, with the teaching that I've done, the pandemic, everything like that, I've really re-looked at how I was playing, and I had to say to myself, and also, I'm going to be 45 in a couple of months, and drumming is not as easy on my body as it was when I was in my 20s and 30s. I mean, it's tough, and for people like us, where we hit hard and we play with a lot of energy, it's a physical thing.
Absolutely.
So I'm always trying to find ways to enable me to play. Like you watch people like Tommy Aldridge, guy's 72 years old. He's still killing it. Like what do those guys do? Sometimes it's genetics. Sometimes it's the exercise routine. Sometimes it's what you practice. But I guess the name of the game is how do you sustain that so you can keep doing it, because you don't want to. And who I talked to about this was one of my favorite drummers is this guy Morgan Rose from the band Seven Dust.
Okay.
And he's one of those guys that he was one of the biggest influences on me, because he was the first guy that I saw that just was like, he looked like a mental patient playing the drums. Like he was just out of control, and it wasn't proper, quote unquote, but it had more heart and soul than anything I'd ever seen. I was like, oh my God, I was blown away. And he's in his 50s now, and we always talk about this. He'd rather hang it up early than to be a guy that's phoning it in. When you go to see a guy that's playing, it's just like, man, it's just like, it doesn't even care anymore. It's just like, puts no effort into it.
Yeah.
So that's the things. Those are the things that I notice about getting older and playing.
Things hurt. Apologies for interrupting this episode of Drum for the Song. I really hope you're enjoying it so far. I just wanted to take a few moments to tell you about my Patreon page. This is a place where you can support the podcast in exchange for some bonus content. You can head over to patreon.com/drum for the song. There are 3 tiers available at the moment. One is £3 a month, one is £5 a month, and the other one is £10 a month. Each tier grants you access to exclusive benefits, which include bonus episodes, early access to the main episodes, private Facebook group membership, merch discounts, discount on Motorhead beer as well as a monthly competition to win Motorhead beer, access to Skype chats with me, asking my guests questions, occasional free gifts like drumsticks, free tickets to Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons shows, and your name in the episode description. If you regularly enjoy the podcast and think you would enjoy those benefits too, please consider signing up. If you didn't already know, I do everything for this podcast all by myself. So I do all the contacting, all the research, all the interviews, all the audio editing, all the video editing, all the artwork, all the uploading. I write all the descriptions, I build the website, everything is just me. So essentially the money from the subscriptions helps me keep a bit of time free during my weeks so I can continue making the podcast for you guys. So again, that's patreon.com/drum for the song. Check it out and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Drum for the Song podcast.
So what is your kind of warm-up routine then to try and combat that, if you have one?
Oh, I do. Yeah. A couple things. Like, so on the road, if I can sleep as much as possible, I try to take advantage of the sleep thing, because you know how that is. It's like you just take advantage of it when you can. And then a lot of times I like to go for a run. I'll go for a jog in the day. And then we'll sound check, and then we'll play the show. And that all happens pretty consecutive. I mean, on a day, like for me, like if our show time is a lot of times our show time would be 8:00. So if I woke up at 2, I'd wake up, have my coffee, go for a run from 3 to 4:30, 5 to 6:30 is sound check.
Wow.
And then 8:00 doors. So that's the routine. You know what I mean? So it's very simple, but that's kind of the routine that I would do. And as far as like, what I do, and part of the great thing about that sound check, the fact that we do have a sound check every day, is there's my warm up, because I'm playing songs like an hour before we start the show. So in that sense, I'm warmed up. And then I have different things that I do. I have the weighted sticks. Last tour, I found 2 rocks and I duct taped them to my drumsticks just beforehand to just practice, like the kind of the baseball bat. When people put a donut on the bat to warm up, same concept.
I never thought about that. I've heard of like ankle weights people use on their ankles for like.
I've done that too.
Players. Yeah.
It's for me. I just started doing it because it was, again, the older that I've gotten, the more, you have to learn about stamina and pacing yourself and technique. And so my goal has always been, I want to be as powerful of a drummer as I can, but I also want to be relaxed. And those two things, it's hard, because when people say, put some energy into it, what's the most common thing you do? Tense up.
Yeah.
So the idea of putting some energy into it, but yet being relaxed, I mean, it's like a Bruce Lee kind of thing.
I know what you mean. And then I feel, even though it might not look like I am when I play, I'm trying to feel relaxed.
You do look relaxed, man. You look great when you play. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's and just enjoying it. But when you start tensing up, that's when things go wrong and things become harder to pull off.
It's crazy, man. And there's so many. That's the other thing. Like, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but like, when you're rehearsing in the same place, or you have your drums in the same place, or you're practicing the same things, this is going to be great, man. And then you go play somewhere and it's not your kit, and you sit down and it doesn't sound the way you want it to sound. And you can't get the angles the way you want it to be quite right. And it's like, where did that feeling go? Now I don't feel comfortable again. So I always like to try to, how can we, no matter what situation you're put in front of, no matter how no matter what kit it is, no matter what drumsticks you have to use, no matter what pedals you use, it's that same kind of confidence when you sit down, no matter what.
You got to at least try. And I'm certainly in those situations. Well, that Hellfest gig, none of that was my own equipment.
Oh, really?
I can't remember what it was, but because we do a lot of, because we're in the UK, we fly out to Europe for the weekend and then come back home.
Yeah.
Because there's not really much stuff going on in the week. So I'm usually using rented gear. I put preferences down, obviously, but they very rarely come up with the goods. I take sticks and I take my pedals.
Good.
I don't take anything else.
Yeah.
I sometimes take measurements for what my drum stool should be and my hi-hat and my snare. But sometimes I don't have time to, it depends on the situation. I don't always have time to kind of work that out.
And you know what's funny is that I get like super like obsessive compulsive with drum angles and stuff, especially when we get on the road, because we're at our instruments all day, and there's a lot of times we're waiting. Steve will be working on something and we'll be waiting, and I'll be at my drums, and I'm always like, well, I wonder if the cymbal was down an inch, would that make a difference? If the snare drum was angled a little bit more like that, maybe that would make it a little easier to do this. And I'm constantly doing that, and I'm thinking to myself, at some point, you should try to keep it where it is and don't keep messing with it. But as drummers and as people that we're putting out so much energy, and we want to be as efficient as we possibly as we possibly can. So anything that's going to any angle of how your drum is or where it's placed can make such a difference in just feeling comfortable. So I'm kind of always on the search for that. Just like with drumsticks, man, I'm very analytical about. I'm making a switch right now to the style of sticks that I've been using to, a different shape and everything like that. Just because I'm trying to, because I'll give you an example. So most of my career, in my left hand, my stick has had no tip.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
So the way I got into that was, this is kind of another thing I think about, because I don't know if I was a younger drummer today, if I would have made that decision, because growing up playing in clubs, you don't get in-ear monitors.
Yeah.
You don't have all the things that I see that what young kids get now right out of the box. That you can practice with this full in-ear monitor system.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's a lot easier these days. Yeah.
Oh, it's just like you don't have to fight to get a sound. And when I was growing up, for me, I always wanted that snare drum. I always loved like the way Tommy Lee played, because it was just like this powerful snare drum, and that was always really important for me. And before Steve, Steve does in-ears now, but before we all did in-ears, he was like, the band was so loud on stage, dude. It was so loud. I mean, incredibly loud. And after a while, once we all went to in-ears and everything got quieter, you realize, wait a minute, some of this energy that I'm putting in is actually not doing any good. All it's doing is I'm breaking more cymbals, breaking more sticks, having more injuries, because I'm full on. And it's just like, but in your mind you think, okay, but we're going to play this show. It's like when you play Hellfest, I got to give it all, man. It's got to be all. Yeah, but if you're not relaxed, then you're not giving it your all. So it's fine. It's kind of finding that that balance in that. So I'm trying to be able to play with that power, but also to be able to have the dynamics. Because like with Steve's music, we have songs that are kind of fusioning. We have some songs that's like bluesy. We have ballads. We have all that kind of stuff. And
lots of ballads.
For me as a drummer, man, I have always been really grateful for the gig that I have with him, because when I think about it, I get to go out every night. I get to do double bass. I get to do cool like rock beats. I get to do odd meter. I get to do a drum solo. I get to be showcased. Like as a musician and as someone that's really put time into their instrument, it's an amazing gig. I mean, I really feel that way. There's other gigs that pay more, that are higher profile gigs, and obviously those are great too. But I'm just, if anything, just because of how much I put into this instrument when I was younger, growing up, and how much I was obsessed over it, and how much I worked for it, to be able to be in a position now to play with people that I looked up to when I was a little kid. I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear you say. And I don't blame you at all. It's an amazing gig to have, and maybe I've got a special place in my heart for Steve Vai, because
a lot of people do. You'd be surprised.
Since I was a kid. Yeah. I think he's got one of those followings that people have spent their lives listening to him, and I'm sure new people are still discovering him.
Yeah.
The
Well, I'll tell
quality
you
is
something
still
about
consistent.
Yeah, and I tell you something. There's a lot more to him than just the guitar. You know, he is he's he has taught me a lot about not just music, but just things in life in general. And he's uh, really helped me in a lot of ways. And I value our friendship, and I value that's the other thing I like about touring and meeting musicians, like meeting you and talking to you. I value conversations about music and life, and because interaction is to me like one of the biggest purposes it's one of the biggest meanings of our lives is interaction and talking and communication.
Yeah,
whether we do it on stage, whether we're doing it, when I saw you walking and I said, dude, you were awesome drummer, and we just started talking, and you were super cool.
Yeah, I know, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It made me feel really nice. I'm not used to kind of people doing that. I guess maybe us as a band, we're maybe not so outgoing when it comes to those situations, because we're like, well, we don't know people. If there's people that know my dad, maybe then we'll chat. But I'm not used to people kind of giving us compliments. So thank you,
dude. I didn't even know that he was your dad, and I just saw you playing. I'm like, dude, the way you play, man, you have an attitude, and you have the authority, and you got the tone. The drums sounded great when you played. You had great tone. You got a nice rim shot on the snare. Like, it was great. Seeing that got me pumped up to play, because I remember you guys played before us.
Yeah, it was a few hours before.
I was watching us like, dude, this, and it just got me excited, because a lot of the times with festivals and with even touring, you don't go out and you don't watch bands before you, unless you're touring with a band or something like that. But, when we tour, it's usually just us.
Yeah.
So I love festivals because it's a chance to go see other bands play and get excited, because I'm a music fan, man. I love stuff. I love watching stuff. That's what makes me want to play, is seeing other people play. So when you guys played, the fact that it is that Motorhead punk aesthetic kind of thing. That's what kind of drives me, especially playing big festivals. You want to have that kind of mentality. So
I'm glad you thought that, and that's what we try and do, and and we just do our thing, and hopefully we can keep doing it as long as we can.
Oh yeah, you will be. It's awesome, man. It's really cool, dude.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks so much. I was going to ask about your drum kit and your kind of endorsements that you have, because you've got, considering you play the music that you play, your kit is actually quite small compared to, I guess, most other drummers who play shows like that. So obviously it's Tama you're using, right?
Yeah. Tama has always been, since I was a kid. I think I'm trying to remember who the first drummer that I saw that made me want to get that like Tama. It was either Randy Castillo with Ozzy, or it was Lars. But there was a lot of drummers when I was growing up. The big drum names. It was Ludwig, it was Tama, there was Pearl. DW at that point wasn't even sure if it was out yet. But for some reason, Tama was just something I just loved. And so it was the company ever since I was a kid that I just loved Tama. So when I got the gig with Vai, obviously Vai plays Ibanez guitars, and that's company is Hoshino, and they own Tama. So Ibanez and Tama are the same. So needless to say, I was able to get a Tama endorsement.
Nice.
Too much, thankfully, because my boss, has helped, that company. But I mean, that's always what I wanted. It wasn't like I wanted to try to find what I can get for free or what drum company. I wanted Tama. I always wanted Tama, and that's what I was going to go for.
Yeah.
So I have stuck with them ever since, and the last kit that I got, the newest kit that I have is they do kits with different woods like the Babinga birch. The one I have now is I think it's a birch. There's birch mahogany, there's maple. There's all the different woods and stuff. And again, as I'm sure you are, I'm not like overly like, wait a minute, I hear a little overtone. Turn it up again. It's more like, okay, is it ready to go? And you know how it is. Like it's doesn't ring, sounds good.
Yeah.
And there's so many amazing drum companies out these days. So many amazing drums made. They're all going to sound great. I just personally like Tama. It's just there's something about it, and it's a nostalgic thing. And then they make drumsticks too, and so they started making sticks for me. And so for a while, I had been making my left hand stick with no tip. But it has been in the last year that I have had to kind of relook at that because the stick is so heavy. It's like, and these sticks are thicker than 2Bs. And so I'm like holding these tree trunks, and it's starting to get to that point where it's like, it works for some things, but like, I know this set that we're doing now, we have a lot more dynamic, intricate parts. And, for a long time, I felt like I was kind of like a construction worker playing drums. I was just kind of like hammering away. You know what I mean? And I like that because that's part of drumming. It's the physical movement. But I don't know, in this last year, Dane, I'm just like, I'm starting to like hear dynamics and feels of just I don't know. There's like there's a change in my playing and the way that I see drums, and I look at it like a lot of my favorite guys when they were this age did the same thing. I look at Neil Peart, Steve Smith, a lot of these guys. At some point, you say to yourself, okay, if I want to, how do I continue doing this and stay inspired and still push myself at 45 years old? I mean, I'm not. What am I going to practice? Like, what do I want to do? And so now my mindset is like, I've gotten into different styles of music and just wanting to take all these elements and try to create something unique in my playing, and also like the older I get and the more I see young drummers playing on YouTube, the more I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not going to physically try to compete. But it all comes down to what can make me unique and what's musical, what's creative, so it's a challenge. And some days, as we sit down and we play and everything feels like we're firing on all cylinders. Some days we sit down and play and I just feel like I'm treading water the whole time.
I've had days when I'm like, I doubt my ability. So can I even still play?
You sit down and you go, wait a minute, I'm a drummer. I should be doing this.
It's crazy. Especially with my feet, man. The problem is with my feet. I think I've never really knuckled down and.
Let me tell you something about the feet. Because I always tell this. I always talk to because I have when I have drum students coming in, when I would start teaching them certain foot techniques, or when they would get a double pedal, and they would get so frustrated by things I would always say, my hands are almost always. I always get a pretty consistent feel and speed with my hands. So with the feet, like there are days like feet. I don't know. I don't know if it's because there's more muscles in the calves and the feet and everything that's involved with it, but there's very rare that my feet are not always consistent. It really takes. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I sit down and I try to. The first song that we play has this crazy 16th note double bass thing in it, and dude, some nights we would play and I'm just like, dude, I was so tense. I'm like, please, when is this going to be over? When is this going to be over? And I don't know, feet are different. We do so many things with our hands, picking things up, and all we really do with our feet, we're walking. So when we have to do something where we're doing more intricacies with something, 16th notes and like particular hits, I don't know. I guess it's harder for the brain, to match with the foot than it is with the brain and the hands. I don't know.
Yeah, because your hands always, you're doing a variety of different tasks, I suppose. So yeah, I know what you mean.
But you know what, man? There's some drummers like that just sit down and no matter what, like some of my favorite, I think about my favorite drummers like Dean Castronovo with Journey. Just always was one of my heroes, and he's one of those guys that'll sit down. He doesn't have to practice, doesn't have to do anything. He just sits down and he just shreds. There's guys like that. It's just like, there's the Vinnie Colaiutas that anything it's just flawless.
Yeah.
And instead of, I used to see that and get frustrated because I wanted to try to get into that, but now it's just, it's not so much about comparing as it is to watching and appreciating. And that's what I like to do now with everything with music. Just watch and appreciate and get inspired, as opposed to like, oh, he could do that. Well, I'm gonna try to go.
No, I think it's pointless these days. I think you've got to just realize you're your own person, find your own voice, take inspiration from these people, maybe a little thing here and there, but it's no point really trying to copy or do things like that person because they already do it.
Yeah,
you know I mean?
and I think, I think there's room enough for everybody in the music. I think there's room enough for everybody. Yeah, and I think that when people get, when they badmouth other musicians or they try to think this or that, all of that is just, it comes down to everybody worried about losing a gig or not. Everybody wants to be able to do this because it's fun. At the end of the day, there's a lot of shit that's hard, but at the end of the day, going in to play is fun. So anything that's fun that you get paid for, that you love doing, the thought of that being taken away, it can make people freak out. I don't want this guy to get my gig. I don't want this guy. But the way I'm looking at it now is like, you know what? There's room for everybody, and a lot of the times it's not about the playing. It's also about the personalities and how you get along with people.
I think that's, if not more important,
absolutely,
definitely an equal. Yeah, probably more. Yeah, I know.
You know that. Yeah.
I've never been in the situation where I guess I'm doing a lot of, well, hardly any kind of stuff that you do when I'm playing with other people. I've done little depths for other people here and there, and I do some recording stuff, which is nice that they ask me. But yeah, I've never really done an audition to join a band or anything, or to get on a particular tour. So I don't know what that's like, but I appreciate the people that do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like everything else, everybody, there's a competitive side to it. And, I'm lucky because I never had to, and this is going to sound, I know this kind of sounds, I don't know if it sounds arrogant or whatever, but I never had to try I had to try, I had to work really hard, but like as far as the opportunities being presented to me, they were, they were just there.
Yeah.
And
maybe it helps being where you are in the world, perhaps to some small degree.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that live in that kind of area.
I definitely think so. I think it's a combination. I think there's a combination of a lot of things. I think, there's, are you easy to get along with? Can can you play under pressure? Can you play musically? Do you look cool? I mean, are you, we have to be honest here. There's things, there's all that stuff,
it is a thing.
All those things come into play. And so,
are you reliable?
Are you reliable? Yeah. And I've fucked up a lot of things. I have dark history with some things, man. And I've burned some bridges, but none bad enough to ever, say, hey, you know what? He was going through something and he's got his shit together now. Like, I mean, that's what's like, there's a lot of pressure in that sense, but that's how it goes. You have to, you have to be willing to be in any situation and be a professional.
Yep. I think that's really,
and when
really.
you do, and if you do, have your issues or you do make mistakes, it's how you pick yourself back up, because we all know people, that's the other thing about the music business is that it's a business where people, musicians in particular, can go down different paths, and it can be a ways of self-medicating yourself, especially, touring. You're in a mindset, and then you get home, and then you're not touring guy anymore. Now you're real life guy, and now
families and stuff.
Yeah, now you have to have these responsibilities that you have to do, and that has always been a challenge for me. It's the life that I have on tour, and then the life I have when I'm home. It's always been a struggle because playing music is such a rush. It's like doing something every night where you're just feeding off this intense energy, and then you're coming home to this kind of environment where there's not all these people going, and you have to navigate that. And I don't know, it's been a challenge for me, but I think that's why I do so many different activities, like cardiovascular things, and I have to push myself mentally and physically. I don't know. That's just how I am.
I think that's a really good thing to do, though, because otherwise you could just sit on your ass all day and get fat, or
Yeah.
Well, I know lots of musicians. I'm a bit guilty of that sometimes. I do this podcast and other things, and I'm not as active as maybe I was a few years back.
Everybody, I think everybody is. Everybody has a certain way that their mind and their body functions, which suits them. And for me, doing gnarly mountain bike rides and doing yoga in 107-degree weather, and just doing things that are just why would you want to do that to yourself? Because of the way you feel afterwards.
Yeah. You feel good. For me, it's the motivation to get up and go to that place or do this.
I know.
And once I do it, I love it, and I feel amazing afterwards. So
yeah. That's the motivation part. That's hard for everybody, but yeah. And I also look at it, Dane, like this. As I get older, playing drums physically is more challenging.
Yeah.
In some ways, I'm in better shape now than I was when I was in my 20s and 30s because I know more things about my body now. I know about techniques, about stretching and strength training techniques and stuff. So in some ways now, I feel more in shape. But what I do now is I do activities outside of drumming that are going to be that I push myself way harder than I would with drums. So it's almost like that thing of if I can climb 7,000 feet on my bike up this mountain, then I can play the 2-hour show.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I don't do that to that extreme, but sometimes if I know I've got a big tour coming up, I'll kind of do more running. So when it comes to doing the show, it doesn't feel as physically difficult.
Exactly.
And the cardio fitness is up a little bit. And I don't run marathons and stuff. I do shorter runs.
But dude, just getting out and just getting the blood flowing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much that helped me. It really does.
Yeah.
And you don't think about those things. And again, the older I get, the more I realize the preparation, beforehand, before I play, and how I take care of myself is, it's just that much more important now.
Yeah. I think we're all feeling it. I'm a little bit younger than you, but I've been feeling it the last 5-6 years. Yeah. Definitely little injuries and.
Dan, have you ever tried practice? One of the things that I used to do all the time was I would go into I had a little where my drums used to be. I had this little room, and I would turn the heater on full blast. So you would walk in there, and it would be like a sauna. Wow. And then I would play the set list with my headphones in the heat. Because again, these are, it's finding things like this that are going to help you be a better performer live. Because you can practice all you want on your own drum kit in a studio with not your microphones, with perfectly tuned heads, with perfectly everything, you can do all that, but like, can you be in another situation and have to be able to kind of do whatever comes your way?
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's a good point. And a lot of us, well, the place I rehearse with my band, we've even got aircon now, and aircon is very rare in the UK. So we've got that luxury of trying to stay cool. But then we play a set in a little club, and it's just a sweaty, hot mess. So yeah, that's a good point, actually. I
tell you something, man. That's another thing. Another thing that has been important to me in my development as a drummer is when we practice and when we rehearse, you use muscles and you use certain things. When you play live, I've found that I'm using muscles that I don't use when I'm rehearsing, because when the adrenaline kicks in, your body is going to start, you want that. It's pushing. I got to be able to do this. So sometimes you end up pushing, a little too hard, and that's why you're tense, because you're nervous and you're thinking, wow, now it's like when you play, like I think about this sometimes because I use a click track. There's some songs that if I went out and I was jet lagged and I would just have to count them off the top of my head, there's some nights I'm sure I would count those songs like 5 or 6 BPMs off in some way from what the original tempo is. Because your body goes through these things, and you're in different time zones, lack of sleep, all these things. So again, like we were saying earlier, it's one thing to be in your own practice room with your own stuff playing and feeling comfortable. It's another thing to go into a different environment, to play not on your own kit, to play when it's 100 degrees out, to understand that like when my hands start sweating, it's going to be different. That, like how I hold the sticks is going to be different. That's why on this last tour, I used to use the grip tape.
Right.
The gauze grip tape, and it was tearing up my hands. So I did that with the Gorilla Snot, like that tree sap stuff.
Yeah, I know the stuff.
But it was killing my hands, dude. It was just like my hands would, it would hurt. I mean, the sticks would stay on my hands, but it was just. So what I tried doing, the last tour, we got a sander. We just took the 60 grit sandpaper and we started sanding down the sticks. And if your hands are like dry and I pick up the stick, it's like I don't feel any grip. But the minute my hands sweat and I hold the stick, it's like it absorbs it perfectly. It's like, oh my gosh. And it's not killing my hands the way the gauze grip stuff was.
Yeah, I'll have to try that, because I've only recently started using the grip tape, and I never used it before, only because, I'm pretty good. I don't drop many sticks and stuff like that, but I thought I'd try it. Some gigs were particularly sweaty in the summer in Europe.
Yeah, of course. Last summer was gnarly, dude.
Yeah, it was really hard, and I think that made me start thinking about it. So I did that, and I like it. But then Rob Reiner from Anvil does something similar to you, where he files off with, I don't know, he sent me a video of himself using like a pen knife, and he was just filing off some of the wood from the hand, like the bases of the stick. So I
know exactly what you're talking about. Vinnie Paul did that too.
Right, there you go. A lot of people have been doing this. I never experienced it until Rob sent me that video, and I was like, makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm always, those are the things, Dean, that I will like obsess about and try different things. Like I've tried the grip tape. I've also tried, sometimes I do they have stick wax, like, surfboard wax.
Sex wax, is it? Yeah.
That's what Eric Singer, Kiss, he does that on his sticks, just puts the wax on there, and that feels great too. But the problem that I found with that is that when my hands start to sweat a lot, then it gets slippery. So, but I'm always trying to find stuff that's that's going to make me more proficient and make things easier so I can play as best I can.
Yeah, that's all you want.
We're all trying to do that.
That's what we're all trying to do is kind of get to that next stage up of efficiency and proficiency. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Just before we get to the end here, then I've got one question from one of the guys from my Patreon page. One of the perks is that they get to ask my guests a question. We kind of touched on this one earlier. This is a question from Pietro. Playing for such virtuoso guitar players, do you feel like there's more pressure to be on the virtuoso side of drumming, or does that make you more relaxed to focus on a solid bass for the showman in front of you?
Good question. It makes me more relaxed to be it makes me more relaxed to be able to give the band leader that foundation, that ground, to be able to play what he's written, and also be able to have people that aren't musicians also in the audience be able to like go, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want it to sound like the NAMM show. You know, you go to the NAMM show and you see all these jazz guys and they're all, it's all just like crazy, like abstract, which is cool. But, you know, if you come to a Vai concert, or when I was playing with Marty Friedman, it's the same way. Those guys wanted me to be, they liked that I had the punk aesthetic. They liked that I was more about like, to me, I get more off on that than seeing a guy, you know, doing all the crazy chops all over the place. And that's one of the reasons why I think I've kept gigs that I've kept, because that was always more important to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in some ways it's less pressure, because I'm confident in being able to lay down a solid groove and foundation for someone else. And so I like that. So I guess that answers the question.
Yeah. I thought that's how you were going to kind of lead that one. But yeah, that's awesome, man. And then just before we end then, what's the best tip you can give a drummer, or anything we haven't already mentioned?
I think, you know, the best tip I can say for anybody is just authentically be yourself on your instrument, you know, and we all have to go, we all have to find our way to get there. You know, I'm one of those people that when I was growing up, I idolized my heroes and I wanted to be them. But there comes a time, if you want to make this as a career and you want to be your own person, that you have to you have to find what makes you your unique self, what's going to set you apart. And I always say, like, I joined the band. The drummer before me was Virgil Donati. So what am I going to try to do? I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to be the exact opposite of him. And when I joined, dude, there were people like, why is this guy in here? Fuck Blink 182 kid. Why blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, whatever. I don't care. You know, because I had that mentality. I was like, you know, because that's also a driving thing. It's like that. That's why I like punk rock. There's rebellion to it. It's like, fuck you, man. You know, I'm going to just do this. And when you can have that and you can somehow find your unique voice on the drums, and not unique like it has to be innovative, like no one's ever done this, but just something that makes you you. I don't think there's any, I think that's, if you do that, then whatever opportunities are going to present themselves are going to be the right opportunities, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
I agree with you totally. And
any other thing, Dana, just being positive. You know how it is, just being a good person and being able to get along with people, and you know,
don't be an asshole. Essentially.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the final question, which is what everyone gets on this podcast, is if you could create your own dream band with yourself on drums, but you weren't allowed to have musicians you've already played with. Who would you get playing the other instruments? And they can be dead or alive. Dead or alive.
Okay. Bass, Timmy C from Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, yes.
Guitar. I don't know, maybe like Dimebag or something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And singing. God, that's a tough question.
It is, yeah. It is difficult.
I would say if I could have any singer. No, it would be an instrumental band. You need Timmy C and Dimebag, and it would be a
riffs
trio, and it would be like like just groove, rad, heavy.
That sounds amazing. That's a cool one. No, great. That's well, just thank you for doing this. I've really enjoyed this. We could probably go on another hour, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I was telling somebody I could talk shop and drums for hours. I mean, it's you can totally geek out on it. So I love doing stuff like this. And sorry if I go off on tangents about things because I get so into drums and especially when I started teaching, just there's so much to discover and there's so much that I learn every day. Which makes life worth living.
Absolutely, and that's the the main goal for this long form podcast format is really hopefully people will take things away that they've learned from listening to you and me, I guess. But that's what I hope for. But hopefully they'll enjoy it and it can be entertaining as well for people who aren't drummers, because there are a few listeners who aren't drummers as well, which
and that's good to have. Yeah, it's good to have. Well, anytime, Dan. Seriously, man.
Cool. I appreciate that. I noticed your European tour, which I do wish you luck on. There's no UK shows. I don't know if you have plans for a separate UK.
We might at some point, but I think we're just we start in Portugal and then we're going to hit the Eastern Europe places, and it's tough. It's
yeah.
We're lucky that we're getting out there again. So
yeah, I know. It was pretty cool when I saw the announcement the other day, and I was like, "That's a big old tour in some interesting countries. You'll have a blast. It won't excited. It won't be as cold. It won't be as cold then. It'll be nice. It'll be nice. Yeah, but hopefully you'll come to the UK again. The Brexit thing is probably part of the reason for you not coming. I know
we'll be there. We'll be there again, and we got to hang one of these days.
Yeah, I'll hit you up if you ever come to the UK, man. I'd love to come and hang out with you.
And same with you. When you come, anytime you're in LA, I'm sure you know a bunch of people, but just please reach out anytime.
I will definitely. As a band, it's not something that we don't really get. People tell us every week, come to the States, but I don't know if we've got enough call for it, and it's too much of a risk, and with all the costs involved at the moment. I don't know if it's possible, but one day. But if I ever come on vacation, man, I'll hit you up and we'll hang out.
Please do, man.
Yeah, amazing.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Jeremy, and best
of luck
for the
buddy.
tour. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Dane. We'll talk soon, man.
Yeah. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Drum for the Song podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Drum for the Song podcast. If you've enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave me a review or comment, that would be fantastic too, as it helps other people discover this show. Please also consider sharing this with any family members or friends who might enjoy the content. You can also follow me on social media at Dane_drums or at Drum for the Song, or search for Drum for the Song on Facebook to follow the page and join the official Facebook group. If you'd like to support the podcast, you could purchase some merchandise from drumforthesong.com, or consider supporting me via Patreon from just £3 per month for additional exclusive content like bonus episodes, video calls with myself, competitions, discounts, and much more. Any additional support is always greatly appreciated, but I would like to give extra special thanks to my top tier Groove Master patrons, whose names are listed in the description below. My name is Dane Campbell, and thanks so much for watching or listening this far. If you're a drummer, don't forget to drum for the song!